This video and all of its contents, including any opinions expressed by the narrator, are strictly for entertainment purposes only and is not intended in any way as a substitute for professional services and consultation from a licensed therapist, doctor, attorney, or other licensed professional service provider. Each person must make their own life decisions, and those decisions are theirs. Welcome back to Find Your Alpha. I'm back at you this week with another terrific video story, and you can see the title on your screen. My unfaithful first wife, who just turned 30, is now divorcing husband number 3. And this is a story with an international flavor. I'm not sure if it's from Europe or from South America, but you can see that this OP, his first language obviously isn't English, but he does a pretty good job of describing this story. So let's get into it and see what it's all about. He starts out and he said, "After reading these stories for years now, I believe it is time for me to tell the tale of my first marriage. All started out as expected with much happiness, joy, and good feelings of love. I met her in 2013 at the age of 20 and I was 21. She worked as the office girl at the automobile dealer shop where I purchased cars and had them fixed. She's the one who takes your money to pay for the services." As soon as I looked at her face, I couldn't stop thinking of her. Very pretty, and very nice and kind. After seeing her there a few times and talking about normal stuff like hello and how are you, it's a nice day and that, I asked her if she'd like to have a coffee and she said yes she would. So from there we had our date the next day and enjoyed Galeos while out in the clean spring air. Now when I looked that term up, Galeos, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly, it's a Portuguese latte, like a cafe latte. So that's what leads me to believe that this OP is either from Europe or maybe from South America. It was beautiful, and this girl was beautiful, more beautiful than any flower I had seen before. So you can see this guy is totally smitten with this woman. We had 3 more dates after this at cafes, and then it was time to introduce us to parents, which went very well. My parents love her and her parents love me. Right away, they were all talking marriage and having little ones running around, and I told them to hold on to everything. We are taking it slowly. Well, after 15 months of this, we entered into the marriage and it was all great. So they moved very quickly. We had a nice all-night party with family and friends, and it was a very festive, enjoyable event. Everyone was very happy for us and proud to have us in their families. After the marriage, we both continued our jobs. I have a university degree and have an honorable profession, and she continued to work at the automobile establishment. We were doing well and bought our first little house right away and had 2 automobiles. It was all great. After marrying for a year, it was time to start planning for the family. So we started trying at that point and it was great. So they tried to have kids, obviously, is what he's referring to. Still very much in love and with much respect for one another. We wanted to have a big family like our parents. We did not find luck there after 6 months of trying, but kept trying and praying that our family would soon follow. Outside of that, we were very happy with each other and satisfied with life and how we were living it. Well, you were, but what about her? One afternoon, she called to say she was going out to celebrate the evening with several of her girlfriends at an establishment in our district. I told her that was not a problem, and she said I should expect her at home at 9:30 o'clock. I thought, wow, that was late. I wondered why, but didn't say anything and kept shut, as I trusted my wife and she trusted me. Well, that was a mistake right there, because if you had a question, you should have called her out on it. At 6:30 o'clock, I got a telephone call from a good friend who said, "I have something you should know." He told me that he was at a restaurant in another district and my wife was there. I told him that was not possible, as she is here in this district celebrating with friends. And he told me, no, she is not. She is here with another man. Well, in the vehicle I got, and I drove very fast over to the establishment where she told me she was. Thankfully, I saw her car there and knew this was all a bad mistake on my friend's part. I got out of the car and looked forward to seeing her in the establishment. When I went in, the place was about half empty as it was still early. I looked around and didn't see my wife anyplace. I asked the barman if he had seen a party of females tonight, and he said no. No females were seen together that evening. After this, I called my friend back and told him. He told me to get over there as soon as possible, as things were starting to get a little beyond for a married woman and a man who was not her husband. So I drove to that location, which took about 20 minutes. On my way over, I called my friend, and he told me to hold my horses and relax. He said to come into the restaurant, and he would be sitting at a table at the bar facing the windows where my wife and her date were sitting. The OP says, "Oh boy, here we go." I arrive there and walk in and over to my friend's table and start looking around. He tells me to sit down and then points in the direction of my wife and her date. They are holding both hands together from across the table and laughing like a married couple sharing a special moment. I go to get up and my friend stands up and holds me back, telling me it is not the thing to do. He tells me to cool off and hold on for a minute. I think about it and then thank him and say, "You are right, friend. I am not going to stop this woman if this is what her intentions are." A few minutes go by and the couple is still laughing and touching hands and arms from across the table. Now, could you imagine keeping your cool and watching your wife doing this with another man? If this guy was able to do that, I've got to hand it to him because he's got very good self-control. Then we see that their waiter has brought them their bill to pay. So my friend cashes out his bill and we head out of the establishment before them. A few minutes, maybe 10, go by, and the couple walk out of the place holding hands and smiling from ear to ear like two lovebirds who just had their first kiss. Let me tell you, I was very angry, and if not for my friend, that man would have gotten a final beating from me. Well, I'm glad you didn't do that, because guess what? If you would have done that, you would have been the one in trouble and your wife would have gone on and just lived her life as normal. Meanwhile, your life would have been a mess. So they get into his car, which is a type of car sold at the place where my wife works, and drive away. My friend follows behind them and they drive for maybe 2 or 3 kilometers before arriving at a villa where I guess the man must have lived. My friend pulls over down the street and we watch the two lovebirds get out of the car. He hops out first and runs over to open her door. She then gets out and he takes her hand and they share a kiss. Not a kiss of friendship, but a kiss of lovers, which was all I needed and wanted to see. I will admit right there that I was crying mad back then. What man wouldn't be? You'd have to be a stone not to get upset by a woman who you loved and trusted doing something like this with a strange man from another district. I tell my friend to take me out of here. I've seen enough. My friend drives me back to the restaurant to get my car where I left it and tells me, "You are coming to stay at my place tonight." I tell him no. I want to greet my wife when she gets home. He tells me no and says he will not let me do that alone, as it is not advisable under my mental conditions. So this guy's obviously a very good friend. So he follows me back to my place while I pack an overnight sack and get my shaving utensils and toiletries. While at my home, I tell my friend I want to do something. I tell him I want him to ride me back over to the restaurant so I can take my wife's car and drive it back here. My friend tells me that is not a good idea, as the authorities may think it was stolen. I told him I didn't care and it would serve her well for this. So we did that, and I took her car back to our home and parked it on the street. Then I followed my friend back over to his apartment flat. Alright, so now we're at a point in this story where I want to remind you, if you like what you've heard so far, make sure you hit that like button. That will help out the channel tremendously and also help get this video seen by people all over the world. Now, let's go on with this story. His wife greeted us and we told her why I was there. She was very taken and upset by this, as she thought my wife was a good woman, just as we all did. My friend told her I'd be staying the night and she welcomed me to stay for as long as I needed. She is a very kind and thoughtful woman, like I thought my wife was. At around 10 o'clock, I got the call from my wife. I picked up the call and asked how her date was. She tried first to act like she did not know what I was talking about and started asking me why I took her car, saying she was looking for it for over 2 hours and was about to call la policia. I told her to not try to change the subject and ask her who the man was she was with. She tried saying she wasn't with a man. She was with her girlfriends from secondary school. She finally said the man was also a classmate from those days and she was just catching up with him. I told her that catching up does not include holding hands, kissing on the lips, and going to a man's villa on an evening when you told your husband you were with friends. She tried to tell me that nothing happened and that those kisses I saw with my own eyes were something all her friends did when they greeted each other. I told her that is funny, as I'd never seen that before, and why hadn't I met this close friend man before? Why wasn't this man at our wedding? Why didn't I mention him before? What's his name, by the way? She was saying a lot then, but not saying anything, trying to get me off the subject. I told her I was hanging up and that she was not to call me again until she revealed the full truth about what happened that night and who this man was. I told her I had his address and would be going over to pay him a visit, and it would not go well unless she told me the truth. I went to bed that night but didn't sleep. In the morning, my friend and his wife told me to get a shower and come with them to breakfast. I said, no, I'm not hungry. They forced me to go, so I cleaned up and they drove me to the cafe. While sitting at the table with our coffees and pastels, I get a call from my wife and excuse myself to step away from the table. She then proceeds to tell me the half-truths about who this man was and what she had done with him. I say half-truths because I don't know what went on. And guess what? You never will. She tells me this man was not a classmate of hers, but a man who gets his car work done where she is employed. They had been talking in the shop every time he was there and had become friends, but she was married and he had a woman in commitment. According to my wife, things did not work out for him and his lady friend, so they divided and went in different directions. This upset the man, and my wife gave him comfort and a friendly ear. She gave him a hell of a lot more than that. To repay her, he wanted to take her to dinner, and that's why she lied and told me about the girlfriend's night. She said things got out of control and she crossed over the boundaries with the kissing and holding hands, which then resulted in her going to his villa to finish off the night before coming home to her husband. I asked her what she did at the villa, and she said she didn't want to tell me as it was not good and something she was deeply sorrowful for and would spend the rest of her life making things good with me. Well, you're never going to be able to do that. The OP says, no, lady, that is not going to happen. I hate to inform you of this. I told you from the beginning about relations with others and how that's something that I would not put up with or live with. I told her this would lead to our divorce and there was no coming away from what she had done. It was shameful and I am embarrassed that she was my wife and wanted nothing more from her after this all went down. She was very upset and remorse-filled and told me she would do anything and told me not to tell anyone as they didn't have to know this and we could be fine once she made it up to me. So you see what she's trying to do here? Oh, please don't tell anyone because she doesn't want her reputation ruined. Never do that, guys. Like I've said in all the videos, once something like this happens, you need to tell as many people as possible, especially those that need to know. Now, when I say as many people as possible, I'm talking about family and close friends, because if you don't, she's going to get out there and spin her story. He says, no, I am sorry, I told her, and we would not be a couple or family any longer, and she should plan for her future needs. She didn't know where I was staying and was worried about it, but I didn't care, and on Monday I went out to meet with a legal professional and started the difficult and long process. So this guy didn't waste any time. He went right out and met with a lawyer and started the divorce process. The OP says, let me cut to the chase here. We ended up getting the divorce satisfactorily for me, but it took a long while and was filled with emotions from my wife. I felt bad, real bad, but I knew I had to do this for my own mind and for the future of my family. During the period when the divorce was going on, my wife was very sweet and remorseful. She confessed what she did to both of our families and went to Mass and confessed there and was repenting. And I do believe she meant this, but that didn't change things for me. I held my ground, and my good friend, his wife, and my parents kept me going back then. I got through it, and the separation happened, but not without extreme emotions from my wife and even from myself, I will admit. I really loved her then. Well, and there's nothing wrong with that because you did love her and, she broke your heart and she broke your trust. After the divorce, my wife's personality changed. Now listen to this. No longer was she remorseful and full of sorrow for what she had done. Instead, she became vengeful and a totally different woman. She started going out to the nightclubs and dating with different men from the area and stopped going to Mass. Isn't that interesting how she changed once the divorce was over and she realized, well, that's not going to work out, so now I'm going to go to plan B. Her parents were very upset with this, and so was I for that matter, as even though divorced, I still felt a connection for her, and people still associated her with me, and her actions were not a good thing there. Plus, this was not a good thing for a woman to be doing who someday wanted to have a happy life and family. Well, that's her decision. She's an adult. She can do whatever she wants. Instead of acting decent, she started to flaunt the men she was dating in front of everyone and making sure I knew she had other options and didn't need me any longer. I think this was all a cry for help, by the way, as I know she was not like that at all. It was actually sad, a sad situation. Well, maybe she was like that all along, and maybe the act that she put on with you while you were dating and while you were married was not the true her. Maybe you're seeing the true her now. Eventually, she became pregnant with one of these men, and they ended up getting married after the daughter was born. Good for them, and I wish them well, as at the time I was dating my current wife and woman of my dreams, and really was past all the bad times my first wife put me under. My new wife and I eventually got married, and I have gone on and had 2 daughters ourselves now. So I have a queen and 2 little princesses at home who I love more than life. I thank God for blessing me with this wonderful family, and I feel totally content and that I have fulfilled my purpose in life. My first wife has since gone on to divorce her second husband and father of her daughter, to marry another man less than 1 year after that. Yes, she is a woman who had 3 different husbands before she turned the age of 30. Disappointingly, that marriage too is on a rocky footing because of his infidelity. So the cheater gets cheated on. They are living apart and are now in proceedings for a divorce filing. So she's going to have 3 divorces just in less than 10, 11, 12 years? Unbelievable. It's a shame, really, as I believe deep down my first wife is a good woman and a good person inside. I know she is. Did you ever think maybe she's not? I hope that things work out for her and she finds stability, as I hate to see a daughter, or a son for that matter, raised up in a home without their father. This should not be allowed to happen. For the initial months after I caught my wife with her lover, my family and friends kept asking me why I didn't just go over to that table, slug the man, and grab the hand of my wife and take her away. Well, he shouldn't have done that because he would have been the one getting in trouble. My first wife asked me that many times too. Why didn't you stop me? No, lady, you should have stopped yourself. I say in marriage, you shouldn't have to force the spouse to be faithful. And I agree with that statement. You shouldn't have to force your spouse or your girlfriend or your fiance to be faithful, because if you do, you don't have a relationship. Sometimes when I'm laying in bed at night and thinking, I have concern for this world and what it has become. I wonder what kind of world will my daughters have? Will they get married to a nice man and have a family? God, I hope so for them. The way things are going today, I am really concerned about that. The things that are going on now, I cannot believe the nonsense. It's really sad. When my parents grew up, everyone was expected to be married and starting families right after graduation. When I grew up, it was a few years later. Now it's like no one wants to get married, and last year there were nearly as many divorces in my country as there were marriages. It's a shame, he says. So that's the tale of my story and why I thought I would tell it. When this happened to me, I thought my life was over, but it really had just begun. If this happens to you, God forbid, do what you have to do and you can go on and live a great life. Thank you, and that's the end of his story. And I think it was a great story, and I think this OP handled the situation very well. Thank goodness for his friend. His friend is someone that he owes a life of gratitude towards, not just for alerting him to what his wife was doing with the other man, but how he helped him out and helped him through the situation by making sure he kept cool and also making sure that he wasn't alone on that first night when he found out, because he knew that his emotions were running high. He wanted him to be settled down before he confronted his wife. So he owes that friend a debt of gratitude. And right after that, the OP went out, he met with an attorney, and he proceeded with a divorce. So you really can't fault anything that he did there. Now he's gone on and got married again, it sounds like, to a great woman, and he's got 2 daughters, so he's living a happy life. So hats off to him. I think he handled the situation very well. Now let's take a look at what I think are the morals of this story. The first one: some people don't reveal their true colors until they are tested. Remember up front how he said, oh, his wife was so pretty and she was so nice and sweet and all of this stuff? Well, that might have been because she was never given the opportunity to cheat or to become her true self. But once she was, you saw what she did. Next, when people show you who they are, believe them. The one area where I fault this guy, he keeps saying, oh, my ex-wife wasn't like that. She's a good person deep down. No, she might not be a good person. You know, people are what they are, and you've got to accept that. Don't idealize what you think them to be. Next, and this is a statement he made in the story, and I highlighted it. He said, you shouldn't have to force the spouse to be faithful. And I completely agree with that. If you have to force your partner to be faithful, then you don't have a relationship. It's as simple as that. Next, you're never going to get the full story from a cheater. You know, you may think, oh, she told me everything, or I know everything that she did while she was having this affair. No, you don't, and you never will. Next, having a trusted confidant to help you through tough situations is very beneficial. In this case, he had his good friend. He also had his friend's wife and his parents, and they helped him get through that. If you have to go through a situation like this alone, it could be very tough and very hard on a person. In this case, he did have people to lean on and people to help him through it, and I think that's great in a situation like this. Next, a person's track record is a key predictor of their future performance. And this is a message I send out to the second and third husbands of this woman. What were you thinking? Things didn't work out with her first husband. How do you think that things were going to be different for you? You really need to think about that, guys, before you jump into a relationship with someone who was married before. I would really find out what happened in that marriage. Why did it really break up? Why didn't things work out for you? And talk to other people and get the full story if you can. In this case, it was infidelity. So if you're the second husband, you're thinking, hey, if she cheated on that guy, what's to say she won't cheat on me? Now, what was interesting in this story is that the third husband actually cheated on her. And then finally, a strong man's value increases with age, so he can always recover. And that was the case with this OP in this story. So if something like this ever happens to you, and I hope it never does, remember, you can always go on and rebuild and live a great life. So those are my thoughts, and now I want to hear from you. What did you think of this story, and how do you think this guy handled the situation? Would you have handled it like he did, or would you have done something completely different? Tell us about it in the comments. Also, be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to this channel, and I will talk to you on the next one.